at our own environment through a different lens that makes us all the much better for it. So Papa and all of your team, you are amazing. You're like family. You're always welcome here. I hope this is a great success today. I'm sure it will be. I cannot wait to see you Sunday night, or Saturday night, right? Yes. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Brian, for the wonderful words. Thank you.
Thank you for all the partnership.
And now I would like to invite the founder of African Leadership Group, Mr. Papadia.
And congratulations. Very good. Good morning, everybody. Brian, thank you so much for your leadership and your partnership and giving us the key to this amazing facility. Today is a very special day, not a special day just for me, but for the entire community. And every single person that's sitting in this room were handpicked because we wanted everybody to be very intentional the time you're going to be spending with us today. This morning, I won't take too much time to talk about the African Leadership Group as an organization, but I would like to take time to talk about, as human beings, coming together, what impact can we have in each other's life, and what impact can we have in this great state we call home, Colorado. Some of you have been around the African Leadership Group event, and you know it's a very inclusive organization. And sometimes people get lost to walk in. The first question they ask me, are you sure this is for Africans? And I say, it's for human being, because when it becomes for human being, it's obviously for African as well. So those of you that have other nationalities, other origin, just understand, from our perspective, you are part of us, you are with us, not just for today, but for this journey that we are all on together. So thank you for being here. We know America is a land of opportunity. We also know it's a melting pot. Where I came from, everybody looked like me. Everybody sound like me. Coming to this great nation, all the dream that I had thinking that I'll become rich overnight became a nightmare. Because when you come here, you are faced with a culture barrier. You are faced with a language barrier. It doesn't matter what education you had back home. You find yourself studying all over. And a lot of people can relate to that. Now, here's the fact. If I manage to make it to where I'm today and standing in front of you, because a lot of great people from this great nation called America mentor me and help me. And I'm referencing people from the African American community. My first mentor, his name is Derek Brown, that I met in the bank that changed my life in the banking industry. I have mentored the Caucasian. I have mentored the Asian. Just to tell you, it doesn't matter whatever divisive message we are being fed with, we always have the power to come together. So thank you for being here. Now, to dive deep into the Afrik Impact concept and the economic summit. If you did not know, most African immigrants are very much entrepreneurship oriented. Most of us, we started business back home without knowing it. Because when you find yourself on the street negotiating your next meal, you are an entrepreneur. When you find yourself on the street trying to buy a pair of shoes that cost $100, and you can negotiate it down to $40, you are an entrepreneur. All of us have that entrepreneurship mindset without knowing it, because we were not trained, we were not coached, we were not mentored. But we come here with that mindset without knowing it. And when the opportunity is presented in front of us, we see it, we sense it, we feel it. But yet, we know we cannot do it alone. Because in this country, there are some reality with that mindset without knowing it. And when the opportunity is presented in front of us, we see it, we sense it, we feel it. But yet, we know we cannot do it alone. Because in this country, there are some reality. Starting a business, you need to have what we call a credit score. Starting a business, you need to have what we call a business plan. Starting a business, you need to have what we call funding. But through that process, we got stuck, literally. And that's why you find most of us giving up that dream and starting doing some jobs. So usually what would take 2 years will take us 20. And I told myself, it's not fair. It's not fair because we know we can do something about it. And as an organization, we don't take anything as an excuse. We think about it, we believe that we can make it happen. That's what got us to where we are today. Afrik Impact, why? We know as immigrants, not a lot of people, but some people can label us sometimes as takers and beggars. And we don't expect anybody to change that narrative for us. We'll change it for ourselves. Because as immigrants, we own businesses, we own houses, we pay taxes, we send our kids to school. So then we believe we contribute to the development of this great nation, but nobody gets to talk about it. Then we make it an obligation for us. We celebrate ourselves every year. And anybody that's willing to join us is more than welcome. And that's where Afrik Impact comes from. This is the 4th edition. And every year there's a theme that's tied to it. Last year, it was education and leadership, because we know the role and the importance of educating our community. This year you are here because the theme is empowering the next generation for economic impact. And we're talking about the next generation. We have the obligation to be here and to be intentional about it and to build something to prepare the next generation. We're not talking about empowering the people that's in this room for an economic impact. We're talking about the next generation. It doesn't matter where we start. Let's just make sure today we start somewhere and we move forward. How can we do that? It's very simple to my point of view. The first step of making something happen is to show up. And you all did it. So give yourself a round of applause and thank you for being here. Now, one thing is obvious to us. We cannot do it alone. We cannot do it alone not because we are desperate. We cannot do it alone not because we're not smart. We cannot do it alone because we clearly and simply understand the power of coming together and the power of partnership. We believe today the world is a village. We're talking about the globalization of the world. As powerful the United States of America is, as a country, it cannot develop itself by itself. So it needs collaboration, it needs partnership. And we believe that as human beings, as neighbors, as community members, we can start by showing up, by joining hands together and start that process and doing it now. So once again, let's be intentional about today. If there's somebody that you haven't met before, reach out, get to know them, exchange business card. If there's somebody that might look different, please make it an obligation to reach out and understand a little bit about their culture and about what they do when it comes to business. So now, before I introduce the next speaker, if you are sitting here and asking, how can I support this organization? Or how can I be part of this organization? As far as we're concerned, you being here makes you part of the organization. Now, this event this year is a week long. Next year, it could be 2 weeks long. My staff won't hear that. They don't want to hear that. But because we want to have the state of Colorado to issue a proclamation to make the month of August the African Immigrant Month. And we know it's possible. Now, I know that getting a proclamation issue is an easy step, actually. I know that. But we believe that let's showcase that first before we ask. We don't want to get the proclamation before we can showcase the impact we are having. That's why it has taken us so long. That's why we are getting here. But I strongly believe we are almost there where we can pinpoint the impact we're having in the state of Colorado. So if you want to support us, if you want to be part of this organization, please make it a point to join us on Saturday for the big gala, which is the community celebration where we're expecting 1,000 people. It's going to be at the Gaylord Rockies. If you haven't purchased your ticket, please go to our website, or actually Sylvia is right there and she can help you to purchase. We would like to have all of you there to partner and collaborate with us. If you want to see a community celebration with the beauty, please make it a point to join us. Now, I'm going to be introducing our next guest speaker. And you probably have heard me say this before. As an organization, when election times come, we see a lot of politicians. And my ask is very simple. I see you now, you're asking for a vote. All I ask is make sure to show up after the election. And when I say those things, I make sure we have it on camera, we make sure we have picture, we make sure it's documented. Because I want to see leaders that are genuine. I want to see leaders that care, not only because they want to be into office, but they are very intentional about this partnership. So anytime I encounter some of these elected officials or people for running for office, that's all I ask. Just show up. So we have here the Colorado Secretary of State, and I'm talking about the Colorado Secretary of State that has taken her time out of her busy schedule to be here. And I'm not going to introduce her because of all the things that she has achieved, but I want to introduce her because of the person she is, how genuine she is, how hardworking she is. And just this morning, through some of the introduction, her reaction is, Papa, let's follow up, let's help this person. Papa, let's make sure we schedule a meeting to help this person. And that is the person that I'm talking about. That is the person that is intentional. That is the person that want to make a difference, and that's why she's here. Please help me welcome Jenna, the Colorado Secretary of State, and thank you for being here.
Hi, everybody. How are you guys doing? Good? All right, how's the conference going? Are you having a good time? Can we give a round of applause to Papa Dia? He is so fantastic. He is so fantastic, and I'm so happy to have your leadership so that I can work with you and with this organization. So my name is Jenna Griswold. I'm Colorado Secretary of State. And the Secretary of State is a statewide elected office that oversees elections, campaign finance, and then business and charity registration. And one of the reasons I'm so excited to be here, where did Papa Dia go? He escaped. Okay, I was going to tell him, was that I really think honoring the outstanding contributions of immigrants is so important, but also talking about the next generation and how we pull the next generation up. Because believe it or not, I am the youngest Secretary of State in the nation right now. Well, thank you for that, but I want, the point of that is that there were people there to pull me up. There were people there when I said, hey, I want to run for this office that, I know this isn't political, but I'm a Democrat, that a Democrat hadn't won in 60 years. They didn't look at me, well, some people did, and say, hey, this is not going to work out for you. But there are other folks of an older generation that helped pull me up. And I think it's really important what Papa said, that we're thinking about not only how do we grow, in your case, your business ideas and your innovative ideas, but how also do we give back. So I think that's really inspiring. Now, I want to share some of my experiences with you that I never get to talk about. I actually lived in Botswana for 6 months. I won a State Department grant when I was younger in college, and it was for students who grew up more working class in the United States to go to places in Africa. And so, you know, I got on the plane, flew to Botswana, and I lived in 4 places. The first one was a small village. It had just gotten electricity maybe a year before I got there, and I took intensive Setswana training. And Botswana, by the way, is just north of South Africa. And I just learned so much. Learned about community, learned about a different way, a different pace of life, and learned about how warm the people of Botswana were. And I went on, I lived in a medium-sized village, worked with the Department of Human Services, and lived in the capital. But the thing that I want to talk about is my time in Kasane, which is the gateway to Chobe National Park. And I was working with the Department of Wildlife there. So I remember you get in this little bus, the kombi, the small little buses, and we'd get to the gateway, the drop-off, and I'd have to walk about 500 feet into the Department of Wildlife. And the man that I was working with, his name was Fred DePozzo, and he actually went to CSU, because we have one of the top schools of agriculture and of park management in the not even the nation, in the world. And I would walk through and go see Fred, and Fred the first day looked at me and he said, "Jenna, you are not going to handle what we're about to do." And I said, "Well, try me." So what was happening is there was an anthrax outbreak in the wildlife population. And you know, we have natural anthrax that occurs. And what happens is when animals get sick, the anthrax stays in their bones. And it's not a problem if it's a rainy season, but once it gets to be a dry season, other animals that are alive start foraging, and they start chewing on the bones, and suddenly you have an anthrax outbreak. So I don't want to get into the specifics, but we were stopping that outbreak, and that means destroying animals who were dead with anthrax. That's not the point of the story. The point of the story is I had stayed with 3 lovely families in Botswana already. And when I was doing that work, I was staying with a woman, a white Botswana woman. She was 2nd generation. Her dad came and helped actually establish the park. And to tell you the truth, I was shocked. I was shocked by her level of hostility towards the black Botswanans, because I was only welcomed with warmth there. I was shocked by the hateful things she would say when she was part of a community but actively fighting against it. And why I bring that up is that in this country right now, we are seeing that bubble of hatred. We are seeing that bubble of hatred and, frankly, a rhetoric of white supremacy coming from the highest office in this nation. And I don't think we can turn our eyes away from it. And one of the reasons that I am so proud to serve as Secretary of State is that we are fighting every single day to protect the American dream and to protect our democracy. So when it comes to voting rights, when it comes to having access to the ballot in Colorado, we see voter suppression across this nation. In Georgia, in North Dakota against the Native Americans, in Florida, in Texas. In Colorado, we have taken the opposite approach. We just passed one of the biggest voting rights bills in the nation that is going to increase the ability for eligible people to vote and guarantee for one of the first times ever the voice of students and people on our tribal lands to be heard. And we should be proud of that. When it comes to fighting corruption, we just passed one of the biggest campaign finance reform packages in the nation. And why? How does that fight corruption? Because if money is going in the dark, non-disclosed to support politicians, it can affect their decisions. And American citizens deserve to know how politicians are being influenced. We just passed one of the biggest packages of transparency of money in politics in this nation, and we should be proud of that. And when it comes to registering a business, we have some of the easiest business registrations in this nation. And I do want to introduce, if you guys will wave in the back there, we have Albert and Amber Dawn from my office who are here to help any questions about registering a business, any questions about registering a charity. Because, you know, red tape trips people up who don't have attorneys, who are not wealthy to have all the resources. And I want all of you to know that we see our role as making whatever your American dream is a possibility. So if you have any questions whatsoever about starting a business, about starting a charity, we are there for you. And I'm just so honored to be here and look forward to the months and years ahead of working together because, you know, I'm not the typical politician. I grew up very working class. I started working the summer after 7th grade in rural Colorado. I have been able to achieve my American dream of serving and just being honored to serve in this office. And we want to make sure in my office that we're helping other people reach their American dream too. So thank you so much for having me here.
All right, I'll give the floor back to Taya, the graduate of the African Leadership Group public speaking class. Congratulations again.
Thank you, Papa. Thank you for sharing the wonderful story of how African Leadership Group was formed. And thank you, Secretary of State, for the wonderful remarks. Please give them a round of applause. So I would like to invite here to the stage the panel moderator, Ms. Rosie Alberto McDonough, Director of the Colorado Minority Business Office. And she's going to introduce the panelists for the day. Ms. Rosie?
Thank you so much. Welcome to the Afrik Impact event from the African Leadership Group. Thank you, Papa, for letting us be a participant in your program, and we're very, very excited to be here. I want to briefly tell you what we do. We are one of the offices of the governor. We are housed at the Office of Economic Development and International Trade. We are called the Minority Business Office. What do? We help businesses owned by minority, women, and veterans help determine what is the best pathway for them to work with government agencies at the state, federal, and municipal level. And we also help them navigate the private sector corporate world as well. So that's briefly what we do. We can help you and give you so much more information. Back there, my colleagues, Ulises Fernandez is there, and Elizabeth Munoz. I don't know where she ran to. Oh, there she is, right there. And so if you have any more questions on how we can help you find the resources available, please let us know. And I'm also an immigrant. I'm an immigrant from Mexico. And I can relate a lot with what Papa said before. Show up, number one. And I'm just going to quote him. Number two, look good. Because even if you don't know what you're doing, you look good. So that's another good one. And number three, for me, in my country, there's not too many resources that are allocated to small businesses that are free. So take advantage of the people that are in this room. Take advantage not only of us, but the people we can refer you to. There's a lot of free resources in this country that we don't have in our own countries that we can discover here, and it can help us take our business to the next level. So don't be shy, because you're not asking for any hand-me-downs, you know. You're asking for the services that are available through the beautiful America, US, to help your business and to flourish economically and financially within your community. So make sure you take advantage of that. That's my only piece of advice. And at this point, I would like to call in all of the panelists to join me up here. I'm going to give you very briefly what their names and positions are. The first one is Paul Berman, Director of the Denver U.S. Export Assistance Center for Colorado and Wyoming. Paul, come on over here, please. And I work very closely with all of these people, and I'm very, very proud of that. We all are dedicated to help businesses in Colorado. And the next person is Ms. Kathy Kramer, Program Manager for the Connect to Dot program. Thank you, Kathy, for being here today. You're welcome. Next person is Amanda Fong. She is the Relationship Management Team Leader for Power Africa.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. The beautiful Adrina Gibson, Office of Economic Development Director. She's the Director of the Division of Small Businesses for the City and County of Denver. Come on up. Thank you. And last but not least is Aline Nidey. I hope I'm saying his name correctly. Aline Nidey? Okay. He is the lecturer in political science and international relations at the University of Sherbrooke. Welcome. So I'm going to give each one of them 5 minutes to introduce their organization and talk about what they do and how they do it. So first we're going to start with Ms. Amanda Fong, and then we're going to move on to Adrina, and then I'll let you know who else is next. But Amanda has a few slides, and so we're going to go through that first.
You want up there or
It's up to you. However you feel.
Can you hear me? Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you again to Papa for the invitation to be here. It's a pleasure to be with you all today. I'm going to introduce myself and Power Africa, show a little video, and then go through very quickly just 2 slides and try to do it in 5 minutes. So my name is Amanda Fong. I'm a Foreign Service Officer with the United States Agency for International Development, currently posted to work with Power Africa. I was most recently in Mozambique. My family and I lived there for 5 years, working with USAID. And in case there are any Cameroonians in the room, which I've already met one, I was also a Peace Corps volunteer in Cameroon. So it's interesting to hear you talk about coming to America and experience those cultural barriers. I have definitely experienced those on the other side. So please don't test my French or Portuguese. Yes, there are some language barriers there. So I'm here to talk about Power Africa, which is a US government-led initiative to address the energy deficit in Africa. Pretty different from the other topics that you might be hearing about today. We work in partnership through 12 federal government agencies, as well as with private sector companies and other bilateral and multilateral organizations, such as the World Bank, organizations from countries all over the world who have come together to address this challenge. The energy deficit in Africa is huge, as I'm sure many of you are aware. And Power Africa has 2 main overarching goals. They're very, very ambitious goals. 30,000 new megawatts established, generating electricity, and 60 million new connections to households or companies who didn't previously had access to energy. Could be on-grid or off-grid. We do this through a lot of different ways, but everything is done through partnership. So I really appreciated Papa's comment about really understanding the value of coming together and working in partnership, because that's the only way that we could hope to even come close to achieving these very ambitious goals. We do have an office in Washington, D.C., and Pretoria, South Africa. I'm technically supposed to be in Washington, D.C., so I'm very happy to be based here in Colorado with you all. And it's not usual to have a Foreign Service officer from USAID based somewhere outside of DC or outside of our missions spread all over the world. So this is a real pleasure for me. We also have transaction advisors who work for contractors, grantees, other partners spread all over sub-Saharan Africa. And they're the real strength of Power Africa because they're the folks on the ground, understanding what's really going on, what the barriers are, and which investments, private investments, are actually going to be able to come to fruition. Can you go ahead and start the video, please, Juliet? This video is a lot prettier and does a much better job of explaining Power Africa.
Even in the darkest place, the light of a single candle can be seen far and wide. And that quote has many meanings. It includes shining light on the truth. It means light providing a flicker of hope. And in the case of Power Africa, that flicker of light has created a movement.
Power Africa is one of our flagship programs at USAID. It really allows us in a tangible way to bring the development knowledge that we have and marry it up to the capital from the private sector to harness a new spirit of entrepreneurship there on the continent, matched with technology from around the world, to bring light to the lives of millions of people.
Let there be light.
Have 800 deals that we're tracking on the continent, but those deals are going to hit a brick wall if you can't get that power from the generation plant to the people and to industry.
We have a beneficiary in Eastern Uganda who got a burger system powering a fridge from a collie. She's able to cool her milk. She's able to have 30% of her milk that would have been wasted.
Let's go ahead and stop it there, Juliet. Just because the video is 7 minutes long, so I would definitely go over my 5 minutes. Okay, and then I just very quickly wanted to go through 2 slides. That video, as I mentioned, does a much better job than I could do because it really gives you a taste, a flavor of what Power Africa is trying to achieve, and some of the partners who are involved. This gives a little overview. There's 3 parts to what Power Africa is working on: megawatts, connections, and enabling environment. Power Africa was started in 2013, so we've launched Power Africa 2.0, which is basically an increased focus on enabling environment, transmission, distribution, and helping U.S. companies to engage more and invest more in Africa. But in each case, as you can see, these are the large targets that I mentioned: 30,000 new megawatts, which is an immense number, 60 million new connections. That video goes on to talk more about working in the enabling environment, more about working with women in African energy, and some publications that Power Africa brought together, experts from all over Africa to work together collaboratively and produce. I have a table over there, and I have some copies there if anyone is interested in coming and taking a look at them. One more. As the video mentioned, Power Africa supports all technologies, but with a heavy focus on renewable technology. This just gives you a brief overview of the number of projects that we've worked on in each of these. And when I say we, I mean mostly private companies who are taking the lead in these investments, and perhaps we can help in navigating some of the US government, interagency, other development partners, navigating some of the resources available to help make sure that we're supporting the partnership as it makes sense. So why is this interesting for you all? Power Africa is looking for partners. We're looking for private sector partners, NGO partners. So if you're a business owner and you're interested or currently investing in the energy sector in Africa, on-grid or off-grid, or any number of services involved in that large chain, please come and talk to me afterwards. I would be very happy to meet you, to hear about your company and your interests. There are a few opportunities that I wanted to highlight, and again, you can stop by my table to hear about them more. But for example, I believe next week, August 15th, the U.S. Ambassador to Uganda is hosting a webinar on the oil sector in Uganda. It's free to call in. I can give you information about it. One of our Power Africa supported projects, it's a USAID project in the off-grid space, is currently hosting a call for applications for grant funding. It's a competitive process for companies that work in the pay-as-you-go solar home system space. That opportunity is open right now and closes at the end of August. So if you're interested in that, I can give you more information as well. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Such an interesting information. And now we're going to hear from Adriana Gibson, please.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, have you guys had your caffeine this morning? Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you. I need the energy. Again, my name is Adriana Gibson, and I am with the City and County of Denver. I am the Director of the Division of Small Business Opportunity. I am truly honored and elated to be here, and I thank you, Rosie, for inviting me, and Papa Dia for your warm welcomes. I've met so many amazing people. I don't even know if I'm qualified to be sitting up here with all the work and amazing things that you all are doing, and I mean, especially with you, Amanda Fogg. I look forward to connecting with you. So as I stated, I work in the City and County of Denver, and within the City and County of Denver, I work in the Denver Economic and Development Opportunity Office. There are 4 areas within our office that works to ensure that our residents, businesses, and neighborhoods benefit from our vibrant community. So we have business, workforce, and global development. We also have my office, which is the Division of Small Business Opportunity. We focus in neighborhoods with the growing population in Colorado and issues of gentrification. It's important that we have specialization in how our neighborhoods are developing, and then housing, which just recently became its own department. So I'm going to speak specifically to what I do in my office with my team in the Division of Small Business Opportunity. So to speak to Papa's point, and even with our Colorado Secretary of State, it's no secret that discrimination is still alive and well in the world as well as in Colorado. And that truth also rings well with regards to small businesses and the business that's done between contractors and development in Colorado. And for that reason, programs like mine exist. Because in fact, in Denver, small minority and women-owned businesses receive a disproportionately lower number of contracts in construction, professional services, design, and goods and services. So that is why the Division of Small Business Opportunity exists. We are here to ensure non-discrimination, to assist small businesses in reviewing their subcontract agreements, ensuring that they have an opportunity to sit at the table with larger contractors and hearing about what money, our tax dollars, what that money is going to be doing to grow Colorado. And so specifically, we focus in construction services, goods and services, professional design, as well as work that goes on at the Denver International Airport, as we know it as DIN. So we work to create and expand opportunities for all of these businesses. So we do that by, 1, certifying small businesses in 6 different certification types. We focus on small businesses, we focus on minority-owned businesses, women businesses, emerging businesses. We have to ensure that they're qualified and ready to work with the City and County of Denver, so we have our own certification processes and certification analysts that can assist you. And if we're not available, there's Rosie and Kathy Kramer, who you'll also hear from later, that sit down with businesses and do consultation one-on-one and what it means to do business with a municipality like the City and County of Denver. We also have compliance enforcement and goals for our larger contractors. So once you've gotten certified, we evaluate projects to see what level of opportunity is out there for specific small and minority-owned businesses to work on that project. And then we have to enforce the compliance. We have to make sure that our small businesses are getting paid, that they're not being kicked off of projects, and that truly there's a successful partnership from beginning to end with that small business and with that prime contractor. And then we also have technical assistance and outreach. Gloria Owusu, who's joined us here today, if you just want to raise your hand. She is the point of contact and truly an asset to our office, because she's out there ensuring that small businesses have a gateway into the City and County of Denver. We go to events like these to tell folks about what it is we do. We offer workshops, which we're going to be increasingly adding more workshops next year with our resources to assist small businesses in building their capacity. So I don't want to go over my 5 minutes, but we've got a lot going on, and we're making our office a little bit more robust under the vision of the Mayor, Michael Hancock. The true importance and focus of these next 4 years is going to be equity. Equity for minority and women-owned businesses, and building access and creating opportunities. So in doing that, we've got a wealth of initiatives that we're going to be pushing forward in changing the law, changing our ordinance so that it protects small businesses, putting more funding into capacity building and training opportunities, and even building out equity funds so that businesses have an opportunity to mobilize, pay their staff, get a bond, etc. So I look forward to connecting with many of you. I know that many of you are joining us from outside of Colorado. Please be mindful that we also have a global development office that does similar work, but on a global international scale. So again, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Adrina. Talking about resources and things that we can rely on, Adrina's and Amanda's office, I mean, they are both incredible. Now we're going to hear from Paul Berman. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much, Rosie. Good morning. I'm Paul Bergman, the Director of the United States Department of Commerce Commercial Service for the Denver USIAC. I'm the Director for Colorado and Wyoming, and I'm from the federal government, here to help you. Please don't leave, but let me finish up. But no, it's very, very good to be here. I've met some of you in the past. I look forward to meeting the rest of you. And thank you to Papa and Juliet to have me on the program again. How many of you have heard of Prosper Africa? Okay, that's what I thought. It's a new program started by the President of the United States about 1.5 years ago. I happened to be working at the embassy in Ghana at that time, so I'm somewhat familiar with that. During the first cabinet visit to Africa back last July to Ghana, Ethiopia, Ivory Coast, and Kenya, the Secretary of Commerce came over there. And in the last stop in Ghana, we had to take the Secretary out of a meeting because the President called him. We had to put him in the ambassador's car to receive the phone call, and they discussed Africa for about 20 minutes. And the President sent the Secretary over. A side note, the Secretary had canceled out, and the President said, no, I think you need to go. So as a good soldier, he did go. And during the conversation, he told the President, you're right, we need to re-engage in Africa. The Chinese are kicking our tails all over here, and we need to get back in the game. And that was kind of the beginning that started this Prosper Africa. And from that, the main goals that we have are, one, to re-engage in Africa. So we're starting to do that. You're going to see more and more high-level U.S. government officials traveling over there. You're going to see more trade missions going over there. You're going to see more AID and loans and SBA going into those marketplaces. You know, we're looking at 6 of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world and over 1 billion consumers in Africa. And so we're looking at that. What Prosper Africa does, for the first time ever, we will try, and that's a big we will try, coordinating among government agencies from USAID, State Department, Defense, Homeland Security, Millennium Challenge, Small Business, U.S. Trade Development Agency, Department of Treasury, Department of Agriculture, Department of Energy, Office of Trade Rep, Export-Import Bank, and OPIC. So all these different agencies are involved. So the idea is to try to bring together and do a one-stop shop. For those here in Colorado, this is my office, and we will try to do that. How many of you, when you travel from Colorado, going overseas, have actually stopped into the U.S. Embassy and talked to the commercial attaché? Okay, that should be your first stop. So far, I'm doing real well today, 0 for 0. But we can go up from here. I want to read a couple of projects that we have just signed, the U.S. government working with the companies into Africa. U.S. Trade and Development Agency grant for $702,000 for a feasibility study. Will study enterprise market for fiber telecommunications in East Africa. ExxonMobil, $3 million collaboration with AID to support social and economic development programs in Mozambique. Simeon Power, $75 million investment to develop a 35 megawatt geothermal plant in Kenya. Honeywell announced a 5-year maintenance agreement with Angola Airlines for their auxiliary power unit. Microsoft announced the launch of its first African Development Center in Nairobi. Lagos will serve as premier center of engineering for Microsoft, staffed by world-class talent from across Africa, hoping to hire 100 people, and we'll be spending over $100 million and expanding to 500 across the continent. And so these things are happening. The problem is, you know, the list I could go on, nobody's from Colorado. And so that's my goal. My job is to get Colorado companies, Wyoming companies, these companies over here into the African market. It's there, we can do that. And as I said, for the first time ever, we have a coordinated effort of the U.S. government agencies of 15 trying to help you get into that market. Is it easy? No. The Chinese are established over there, but we have some work to do. We have some very, very good products, quality, and with our help from Papa Dia's group and the state, the city, the World Trade Center, we'll all work together and get you into those markets. Real quick, we have a program coming up in Houston, Texas, Discover Global Markets, Powering and Building the Middle East in Africa, and that will be coming on. I have some flyers, so that's a very good program coming up in September. And then here in September 12th, and I need to get with the Secretary of State, and my apologies to her, I didn't get to meet her before, we are having a Stop Fakes program where we will have a full-day program on patents, copyrights, and trademarks, how to protect your intellectual property rights around the world. So we're here to help you. Please take advantage of that, and I'll be around the rest of the day. Thank you very much for coming and allowing me to speak.
Thank you so much, Paul. So many new programs we can take advantage of. And now Kathy Kramer has one more program that is a great resource for us in Colorado.
Yes, thank you for having me today. A lot of you may say, what is Connect to DOT? Does anybody have any ideas? DOT? Department of Transportation. So I know I'm probably the least exciting of the folks up here today, but how many of you drove here today? That's right. How many of you sat in traffic today? Okay, so you probably saw some of the orange signs that were out and around. If you came across I-70 out there, you know there's a big project, about $1 billion project called the Central 70 Project. And all those bridges out there that you came across between I-25 and Tower Road, they're all going to come down. We're digging a big, huge hole underground and putting 8 lanes of traffic underneath it. So part of the Department of Transportation's goal is to obviously help move the public. And in doing so, we rely on contractors to help us do that. CDOT maintains about 23,000 lane miles of highways across the state. And in doing so, our contractors that we contract with, we spend about $900 million every year with entrepreneurs. And part of my program with Connected Audits with the CDOT Civil Rights and Business Resource Center in partnership with the Small Business Development Centers. And we help entrepreneurs be able to catch some of that $900 million, specifically minority and women-owned companies. So we look to help you. We have free consultants and training that can help you get connected to opportunities within CDOT. And I know today that the theme that Papa talked about was the next generation. So we'd love to help you as entrepreneurs sort of get into that mode. The government has a lot of socioeconomic programs that help level the playing field for minorities and women. But we also then work with the youth, our next generation. And one of the programs we have is a workforce development program that's called Build Colorado. And believe it or not, the youth out there can go to a 4-week, 4 days a week, so it's 16 classes, to learn how to do construction for free. And it's interesting because just a couple weeks ago, I actually met with a young man who is about 22 years old, and he had recently started a construction company, and he came in to talk to me about doing business with the DOT. And he said, you know, I immigrated here with my family back when I was 10, and I started doing construction when I was about 15, and he kept doing that, working with a lot of his family. His uncles were in construction. And so when he then started his own business when he was 21, he said, wow, I looked around and all of my friends had gone to college. I had stayed and worked construction. And then now they all just graduated from college and they're living at home with their parents, and I got a big old house and a big old truck and a boat and a water, and he said, and now I'm hiring them. So it's one of those things where looking at kind of maybe non-traditional, especially in the skilled trades, people who go into construction right now are making a lot more money than kids that are graduating out of college with big college debt. Not to say that y'all shouldn't go to college. That's definitely one route, but there are alternatives, and there's other ways to help support our youth be able to get into careers and find opportunities when the government's spending over $1 trillion with contractors. Here in the state of Colorado, we actually have the highest concentration of government agencies after Washington, D.C., and all of those government agencies are spending a lot of money, and they have socioeconomic programs to help immigrants, minorities, women to be able to compete for those types of contracts. So that's sort of my role, is to work with folks who are interested in not just working with Department of Transportation, but government contracting as a whole, and to help you navigate. Papa said a lot of times, you know, you've got that entrepreneurial drive, you know how to do it, but you get stuck. And so we're here to help unstick you. Is unstick a word? But yeah, so thank you. That's sort of my role here with Department of Transportation.
Thank you so much, Kathy. And our next speaker, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, Alyun Muday? Yeah. Okay. He, like I said before, he's a lecturer at the University of Sherbrooke. He covers a lot of Africa's politics and economy. He also serves as a trainer in the geopolitics at the Canadian Foreign Service Institute. And then he also has a lot of social media outlets, including BBC and Africa, Le Point, Africa 24. So some of his programs are being featured right now in the Facebook page at the African Leadership Group. So if you want to go, check it out, and then share it with your networks. That will be a lot of help so we can spread the word of your work. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Moderator, for this introduction. Actually, when a typical Canadian travels to Denver, they always have in mind our cherished hockey team that was relocated to Denver. which kind of make it for him a bit of experiment. But when I'm traveling to Denver, it's the opposite. I am actually coming to feel what I call the spirit of Denver. And I think you can even extend it to the state of Colorado, which is that inclusiveness, okay? Which is the spirit maybe of the American dream, which make all of us young Africans dream about coming into this land of opportunity and openness. So I would really like to comment that and express how I am happy to be here with you, but how I'm always happy to travel to Denver or to Colorado. But also I would like to commend the African Leadership Group and my friend and brother Papadia, who invited me here, for what they have realized. Most of us Africans are dreaming about a united continent. We are dreaming about a united community. And when I come to Denver, that's what I feel, a united and vibrant African community. And it's not just the African who left their country to come to the US, but also the African-American community, which for me is part of the African community. And I'm really happy that the African Leadership Group is trying to build bridges and connection with this community. But most of all, and I will end my opening remarks there, I think that spirit of Denver or that spirit of Colorado, you feel it as well in the nationalities you have in your gatherings. Because it's not just limited to Africans, but it's open to all kinds of nationalities, which is important for me because, as I always say, a passion for Africa should be a passion for all mankind, because the journey of human being on this earth has started in Africa. Well, I'm here to deliver a message. And this message is a lot about Africa, the way Africa has been perceived, okay? And which, for me, is one of the reasons why maybe the economic relation between Africa and the United States has not thrived yet. Africa has been most of the time perceived as a challenge. And this explains why we have all these narratives about our continent. Okay? We talk about poverty, we talk about civil war. And this narrative kind of play a role of a hindrance for people to see the real face of Africa. Africa is actually a land of opportunity. So we should start seeing it not as a challenge, but as an opportunity, and especially for the United States. And the reason why I'm advocating that is, if you look at the trade between the US and Africa, it's about $40 billion. Well, guess how much India is trading with Africa now? 65 billion. So even India is trading more with Africa than the United States, which is just 7 hours away from Africa. New York to Dhaka, it's 7 hours away, it's not even less. How much China is trading with Africa today? 240 billion. And the US is just at $40 billion. So I think a lot of it is because we haven't seen Africa as being this land of opportunity. And seeing such a vibrant community here, and seeing such an inclusive state and city, I think we have there the two ingredients that can help us build that new relationship and make Denver and the city of Colorado the gateway of Africa to the United States and the place where we will nurture and build that new economic relationship which will make the United States engage more the African continent. And this is really important because we have come to an era where diplomacy and economic relations are not just between states. The communities that are established in the different countries where they are, they have to play a great role in what we call catalytic diplomacy because they intervene as being the base of market intelligence, as being those who can further the schedule of engagement between the two countries. So I think the African Leadership Group can play that role, but the spirit, again, of Denver, which I can see also in all these institutions that show the openness to the immigrant community, that show how we orient the state action, the public policy into opening opportunities for everyone. I think if we put that together, we can really have new US-Africa relation that will probably help not just the US to prosper, but also Africa to prosper, because Africa needs to be prosperous, not just for Africans, but for the whole world. And I would like just to close my opening remarks by, I have a friend who has an organization, and I think the motto of his organization is, we are the ones we've been waiting for. Okay, so he's trying to build a new a new generation of Africans who are really the Africans that Africa has been waiting for. But I think I can definitely say today that African Leadership Group, you are the ones that we've been waiting for. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So now we are going to give you the opportunity to place your questions to each one of these panelists. So I want to open the floor for anyone that has a question. If you don't have a question, I can start, but thank you. Juliet is coming with the mic.
This is a question for the gentleman on the end. What do you think is a good number, that a good goal the U.S. should shoot for as far as trade with Africa? Because you said that China's at 70 billion or something. Yeah. So what's a good number for the U.S. to trade with Africa? Well, no, he said.
So we're at 40 right now,
we're
and
at 40.
India is 65 billion.
Yeah.
Right?
Where should we be?
Can I answer? Oh yeah. Thank you very much. I think that's a good question, because one way to move forward is to set goals. Okay, and talking about India, India has today a goal of reaching $150 billion in 25 years in its exchange, in its trade with Africa. And I think this is really achievable to the United States. And the United States can even do more. It's just a fact of changing the perception. And changing the perception is a lot about changing the narrative. And that's why I really commend once again the work we are doing here. Because we are not just changing the narrative in words, we are changing it in deeds. Showing that there's a vibrant Africa that you can trade with. There's a vibrant Africa that can bring the engagement of the US further. So for me, 150 billion is a very realistic, I would even say a very conservative goal. And I think by putting together all these programs that have been mentioned, but also, once again, by changing the perspective and by changing the narrative. So 150 billion is a quite reachable target for me in the next 20 years.
Thank you. I think Paul has a comment, please.
Yeah, if I could just add from the U.S. government side, Amanda, have you seen any figures yet from the Prosper America? No. It's still being finalized. It's not been released by the White House. But the figures that I have is that we're looking at the marketplace in Africa at $13 trillion. So we have a very, very small share. Mm-hmm. The Chinese are definitely the #1 players and others in that. Yep. And we're late to the game. We conceded that. We forgot about it. But now we're re-engaging, and it takes time. But we're adding additional people. Some commercial offices will be opening up over there. And, you know, first step in the journey of 1,000 miles begin with the first step. So we're doing that. We're trying to marshal these 15 U.S. agencies to work together. And usually we don't, but hopefully we can. And we will start working better.
And I can just add a little bit. Don't forget that importance of cultural ties. As we mentioned, cultural barriers. India has tons of cultural ties with Eastern Africa, right? So it seems a little strange to us sitting in Colorado, like India, no, that's so far away, but it's not that far away from Africa. And so they're building on a long history. But I think one of the areas that will help American companies do business in Africa is enabling environment changes. That will make it easier for investors to compete on a level playing field. So, for example, you know, opening up the energy sector to competitive tendering. American companies do very well when they know about opportunities in advance. They can get together their package. The playing field is clear to everyone. They don't do very well when they don't have the right personal connections. The opportunities are not competitive, The tenders are not advertised, more than 7 days in advance. So this type of enabling environment improvements will help American companies to compete. There are changes happening all across sub-Saharan Africa. Senegal is updating how they calculate tariffs on importing renewable energy equipment. Rwanda just released a map, countrywide map, showing village by village which ones will be on-grid, which ones will be off-grid. Ethiopia is moving towards competitive tenders for the first time in the energy sector. So there's a lot of movement happening. And American companies they're not aware of it yet, I think.
Rosie, one last comment. Hopefully, we'll hear from our very distinguished speaker at lunch, Geta. And Geta and I first met together on Mayor Webb's trade mission to Africa. How many years ago, Geta? 14 years ago. So here you have the mayor of Denver taking almost 50-some people to Africa. And it came very close. It didn't happen at the end, but they were ready to establish an office. And I believe it was in Senegal. I can't remember 14 years ago. But anyway, you would have had the city of Denver having an office for trade and culture in Africa. So I believe he went over there twice. I went with him. And was very active going over there. I can't think of any other trade mission from Colorado, from the state side or the city since then. But there's a lot of connections that were made that can be redeveloped. And the first thing is to get our U.S. business people, Colorado, into that marketplace to meet them, get to know them, and find out the opportunities and do business. So Geta, maybe you can share at lunchtime some of the experience in Sinter.
Not that I can recall the state going there, but hey, that's the opportunity, right? We can educate our new administration into what the opportunities are, and I think that would be not too far away. You had a question?
Sorry. Yeah,
Okay. Julie is coming.
I was concerned about what socio-economic programs are being implemented beyond the power infrastructure to help sustain the local communities in endeavoring in a sustainable living once they have resources to power and access to these facilities. What type of opportunities and what percentage of monies are going towards fostering and development of the local community infrastructure as far as business, sustainability, family, relationships, and just a level to take advantage of the infrastructure that's there in an effective manner. So what programs are being put in place to facilitate that and help the local communities beyond the power access?
Yes, Amanda.
Okay. A lot, but it's also a very big question. I think part of the question gets at this chicken and egg issue of, are there no, is there not a business there selling cold drinks because there's no energy, or is there no energy because there are no businesses there who want to sell cold drinks, right? A lot of opportunities once the energy is available, that entrepreneurial spirit kicks in, right? But from the U.S. Agency for International Development side, we have a lot of programs focused on sub-Saharan Africa that work in all spheres: economic growth, health, education, democracy and governance, environment, biodiversity conservation. It's quite a large program, actually, that's spending your taxpayer dollars, helping to develop these countries and working together with the local governments, and the national governments in Africa. So it's a very large question. I'd be very happy to speak with you more afterwards. And of course, you can always look up on our website, usaid.gov, to find a lot of programs that are going on right now.
To be clear, the reason why I ask is because the concern that I have is, and it's not a denigration of the platform or the efforts that's being made at all, but we know from history that the interest in Africa is because the resources in Africa is very valuable, and the resources of Africa drive the economies of the world's economies around the world without Africa. So I wanted to make it plain to see what percentages of monies and opportunities, and I'm quite sure you probably can't answer that right now, but I wanted to bring it to the forefront so that we had that as a discussion, that this opportunity being brought to Africa is just not cloaked in an opportunity with the hand underneath being taken from the communities of the local communities. And I hate to be the one to bring that, but I am the one to bring that and that concern. That's what my concern is. How are we facilitating, say for example, me as an African American building a cultural relationship of teaching, training local communities of how to sustain themselves with job training, socio-economic programs that will sustain the local communities and not just going in and building infrastructure. The Chinese are already doing that right now. So the interest now with America is because the Chinese are there. So I think the interest should be about the people. That's just my point, you know. Thanks, appreciate it.
Very valid too. And so that may be a topic for our next conference. Yes? We have one over there and then we'll come back to you.
Sorry, I would like to ask a question on how Power Africa collaborates or partner with the private sector in Africa. If you could please just give me some sort of overview of what is going on in terms of renewable energy program, particularly with regards to solar energy, and how is that affecting, how is that making impact in terms of a socio-economic benefit, as well as tackling the impact of climate change in Africa? Thank you.
So the question is about how we work with private sector, in particular private sector African companies and in solar. Right? Yeah. We have about a little over 150 formal private sector partners that are listed on the Power Africa website. And beyond that, we work with a lot more companies. About half of that 150 are American companies, and the rest are African, European, Asian, etc. In particular, in solar, I don't know off the top of my head, we have companies that are financiers, banks, private equity funds. They want to get involved in projects with debt or equity. We have partnerships with companies that are engineering firms, project developers, that want to develop large-scale, grid-level solar projects. For example, one, I think it was highlighted in the film in Mozambique, was Mozambique's first grid-scale solar project. But we also partner with companies that are off-grid, solar home system. You know, if you can imagine a house that's never had electricity before, they can have a solar panel on the roof, paying the bills with a pay-as-you-go mobile money application, for example. Of course, that only works where the mobile money ecosystem is functioning, such as in Kenya. So in a lot of different, we try to partner sort of company by company in a way that makes sense. They don't have to be a formal Power Africa partner for us to have a productive conversation, make introductions. A lot of the value that the Power Africa Initiative can bring to companies is by just providing a one-stop shop, someone that they can call, like a relationship manager, that if I'm a company's relationship manager, they can call me and say, hey, Amanda, I heard there's something going on in Rwanda and solar. What's that about? And I might not know off the top of my head, but I can call the embassy in Rwanda, or I can call my friend who's working, my colleague who's working in the solar sector, and get the details and then make some introductions for them, or help to navigate within the US government. It's really confusing. OPIC, XM, USTDA, CLDP, Commerce, Treasury, USAID. It's like you need a master's degree just to understand all the acronyms. So that can be really valuable as well. That's another way that we help companies to sort of figure out what resources are available and what makes sense for them. Did that answer your question?
Thank you, Amanda. That makes so much more sense. And those acronyms and those different agencies that provide services, that's a big part of it. So you have a panel here of people that can be a resource for you in every area, locally, you know, and internationally. So let's get really close to them and ask them the right questions. And Paul had a question, a comment from before.
Right.
To the gentleman, the question before, what you said is correct. You know, so it finally has taken the Chinese into Africa to get to Washington to focus on that. Last time we focused on Africa, AIDS or Ebola or something like that. But with the Prosper Africa, they're looking at the total continent, from the energy to the culture, the infrastructure, entrepreneurship, all down the line. They have come up, it's still new, and I tried for 2 weeks before today to try to get some information, but they're putting out a one-stop shop and a mailing list that you go in, tell them what you're looking for, what sectors, let's say entrepreneurship, and those things that would be coming out from across the continent that the embassy has developed on opportunities you would get. So please give me your name and number, and as soon as I get it, you know, we can get that. But, you know, we mentioned energy because that was the first one in there, but we're looking at all the sectors. And as I say, I agree with you that we're focusing because of Chinese air, but we're looking at everything. Whatever it takes to get Washington's attention, you know, at least now we move forward and try to do something good. So, very good question.
You had a comment?
Yeah, just a comment about the fact that the new U.S. Africa policy is much, you know, oriented toward countering China, which it's not a bad thing actually per se, because I think we always tend to forget it. I think the United States is probably one of the countries that has the largest experience in helping countries develop and prosper. I often give the example of Japan. If Japan has this close tie with the US after what happened, you know, at the end of World War II, it's because the United States had really helped Japan from the political level organize the society toward a liberal democracy, but also be an economic power. The United States has granted favorable trade terms to Japan for years, to the extent that at some point they have to kind of reverse in a trade war with Japan. So for me, this is really important. We have to tap from this experience that the United States had as a developer of countries. And this has to be turned now toward Africa. Okay? And that's why the whole purpose of what I'm saying, Africa should be seen not just as a challenge where you would have some action to eliminate AIDS or poverty. No, it has to be seen as an opportunity. Because let's take agriculture, for instance. 60% of the world arable lands are in Africa. 70% of our population is under 40. So you have arable land, you have workforce that you can tap on at, you know, arm's length. These are the ingredients that we need to put together, but add it to a chance of perspective. Not just help Africa because it's a poor continent that we have to help, because it's a land of opportunity where we can do trade at the benefits of both parties.
Thank you. Great comment. We have one more question here.
I have a saying, as I call it McKeeism, which is that just as in law, possession is 9/10 of the law, perceptions are 9/10 of predicament. Now, I want to say that because I think that the question that's being raised by the gentleman there is that, I can't see but I heard him, is that there is something different about the perceptions of China in regard to development versus our perceptions. And that perhaps has made a difference in the inroads that are being made. So my question to the panel is, what do we need to change in regard to our perceptions about Africa? What specifically do we need to address so that we can enter into partnerships and business relationships that are effective? One example I will give is that I heard Andrew Romanov, this is not a commercial for him, but I think he's a good guy, but he worked with a thing called the Posner Institute for International Development. And one of the things that the Posner Institute does is they look at the technology at the village level, at the human ma, pa, small level, and look at opportunities in which our knowledge of technology and our ability to research and understand problems locally can be channeled into constructive projects that can engage villages in generating electricity, getting water, doing things like that. And some of those kinds of things, I think, may A, change our perceptions, and two, engage our relationships with the communities much more effectively than we think, and probably more dramatically.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to, who wants to answer?
I'll throw it to you, but yes, that's correct. But, you know, the professor can maybe agree or not to agree, but here in the United States, the perception, we always have to have a boogeyman, somebody out there that we have to go against, like during the Cold War. It was the Russians, they were 10 feet tall, and they really weren't. But we always have this perception, and that motivates the U.S. government to do something. I would say today there are a lot of individual things going on between the United States and Africa. What we're trying to do now, hopefully, move it from paper to action, is to bring the resources of the United States government together to go into those marketplaces. And if that's the case, we're unstoppable. We have so many resources, 15 government agencies. Most of us, we don't even talk to each other, but if we can marshal them together to promote a united front going into those markets, helping you who have the expertise, and we can give the introduction and the financing, we're unstoppable. Forget the Chinese. Yes, we bring it up. That's what I hear all the time, and it's our focus, but we always have to have somebody to go against. But I agree with you. Professor?
I think I don't have nothing to add to that. It's exactly what needs to be done. But talking about perception, I think these kind of events, is really important, because we're here talking about Africa, and getting some views, some different perspectives. And I mentioned that also in my opening remark. I think there's a role that the diaspora, and when I say the diaspora, it's basically the Africans who are living in the United States, the associations, that they have to play, and what the African Leadership Group, and I most of the time refer to that. I travel all in Africa and in the diaspora. I have seen very rare examples of such a vibrant, community that what I see here in Denver. Last time I was, 3 years ago I was here, I was telling that the African Union headquarters shouldn't be moved in Denver, given what I see here. And I really encourage you and commend you to go that way, and I think your example hopefully will spread out everywhere, and see Africans who are changing the narratives in the country where they live for a better engagement with the African continent.
Thank you. Thank you. So we have room for one more question.
My name is Gail Stallings, and I'm the new honorary consul for Ethiopia in Colorado.
Welcome.
Well, thank you. It's been a long time coming, but it's good to have support from the Ethiopian government in Colorado, as we do have a large immigrant population here. And that's one of the things I want to challenge this group and send home with them. There are two areas that we need to stand up and be counted as an immigrant population. We need to let the people at Denver International Airport know that we have numbers in Colorado. We need a direct flight to Africa. We're talking about business in Africa.
Great.
We have maybe the top airport in the United States for connections in the United States, and one of the largest airports in the world, busiest airports in the world, and we don't have a direct flight to Africa. I know there is some interest with Ethiopian Airlines, but you all need to get your voice out there and be sure that people understand that there is a population here that is anxious to have that direct flight and anxious to do business in Africa. So that's number one. Number two, the other way I want you to stand up and be counted is next year is the census. The population that is not counted well in the census is the immigrant population, particularly persons of color, because there is sometimes a concern and a feeling of fear among the immigrant population that Big Brother is watching or whatever. There's a concern. But we need to make people aware that we have this strong population of people here who are successful immigrants who have power as a group, and we need to be counted. So please stand up and be counted in 2020.
Thank you. Thank you. That's totally correct. I'm going to take that comment about the direct flight to Africa into some of the groups that I work with, for sure. And then we also work with the Department of Regulatory Agencies with Census 2020. So for my community as well, there's a lot of fear, to come out and say, this is who I am and I'm here. So I hear what you're saying, absolutely. Thank you for your comments.
I also wanted to say to that comment with regards to the direct flight, I will personally be taking that back to our Chief Operating Officer, Kim Day, with the Denver International Airport to speak to her and the mayor about that.
I know they have been, I know that the mayor looked at taking a trip to Addis Ababa and Nairobi a year or so ago with the purpose of discussing with Ethiopian Airlines and Kenya Air to look at that direct flight. But we need, as a group, as a population, to make our needs known and promote business in Africa through that direct flight.
If I could make a comment, Rosie, again, the back. Sorry to dominate. I work with DIA, quite a bit on there. They've had some of their officials going over there. And to give you some background real quick on those flights, it took us 25 years to get our first flight from here to Japan. Now, it won't take that long going into Africa, but they're looking at it. And what you said is very correct, the population. When I went to Nigeria last summer, 2 summers ago, Papa helped introduce me to the Nigerian community and found out that we had over 30,000 Nigerian Americans living in the Denver greater area. And I think that's the largest. I would guess Ethiopians is maybe second. When I went to Ghana last year, I found that there were around 3,000 Ghanaians living in this area. So we need to find out how many people are there, present that to the city and the state to continue. But there's a lot of federal things like that that happen. And unfortunately, with the air accident in Ethiopia a while ago, that kind of put everything on hold. And but they're definitely looking at that. Ethiopian Airlines is well recognized in Africa, and so it's not going to happen today or tomorrow, but it's on the plan, and a lot of interest.
Thank you, Paul. And Juliet corrected me, so I think we have a little bit more time. We're going to take a question back there, and then Papa, or here.
Hi, good morning. My name is Thomas Lockhart. I'm a professional artist. I just had a quick question to find out that because Africa has so many wonderful resources, and as we see here, when it's reported about Africa, we always see a lot of bad things and a lot of different things. And how would it be to be able to put a small package together from each of these different countries of all the different qualities and things that they can actually do and present to so many companies here in America, to say that Mali can offer this, or Senegal can offer this, or Zimbabwe can offer these types of things, and so much ingenuity from the country and their developments from people's inventions and things that can actually come back to America. So an American company can say, I can look at this company like South Africa, and they can, I see a connection there that I can work with.
Trade.
Yes, that I can trade with within that country, to be able to put together, just small different things that in this country we have these qualities and we have these opportunities that we can go back and forth and liaison with those particular aspects.
Thank you. No, that's a great point. And I don't know if we have a resource that can help with that?
Sure. The first is go onto the website export.gov, all right? And you can see me afterwards, and that will get you into our system. And in there you go to country commercial guides. So look at Mozambique, Senegal, or whatever, go to the commercial guide. And in there they will talk to you about how to do business in that country, the cultural side, things like that. But then you go to the best prospects, opportunities that are in that marketplace, and you can search by industries. And that's probably updated every 18 months in there. Also, please give your name afterwards. As I said, the Prosper Africa, they're going to start a mail list. And when you have certain, you go in and qualify countries, sectors you're looking for, they will mail you these opportunities. It's an old program called Trade Opportunities. And if you stay in the government long enough, everything repeats itself. So we're coming back with that again.
Thank you, Paul. And export.gov.
Export,
Yes.
export.gov. Gov is in Victor.
Yes. There's other agencies too that can provide you with, one-on-one consulting. If you want to do that, just come and talk to me for a second. Juliet, we have one more question.
Yes, my question is for Amanda. Your office is in Washington, D.C., and you happen to be located in colorful Colorado. Could it be because the National Renewable Energy Lab is here? And if so, can you arrange through the African Leadership Group for us to have a tour of the facility? My second question is, with all of these megawatts projects going across Africa, how do we get information in the early stages so we can be part of it? Because some of us are technical and we can assist in some of the capacities. Thank you.
Yeah, good questions. I don't work with NREL. I actually am going to be attending NREL's conference next week, August 13th and 14th in Golden, Colorado. I believe it's free to sign up. It's called their 2019 Partnership Forum. So perhaps you can go on the NREL website and sign up to attend that and get a free tour of their campus and learn more about what they do and how they partner with folks. I'll be attending it to learn about them. I'm just learning about all the wonderful activities that NREL does. The USA does have a partnership with NREL. Power Africa partners with NREL as well. That's the National Renewable Energy Lab, which is fabulous and wonderfully based right here also. No, actually, I am based here because my family is here and I got permission to stay here. So I'm supposed to be in Washington, D.C. I'm very happy to be here. But it's wonderful because I think it gives me an opportunity to meet folks like you to expand beyond the Washington, D.C. bubble that so many people get trapped in, where they just sort of focus inwards and have a really hard time connecting with actual American companies that are not, the very, very top tier in terms of size, the smaller companies. So it's a wonderful opportunity for me. But in terms of making introductions to NREL, yes. Even though I don't know them very well, I have colleagues that do work with them, and I would be very happy to do that if that's something that you're interested in. Just come see me afterwards. Getting information about early stage opportunities is really the key to doing business, because by the time a tender is announced, it's too late. You can't put together a competitive package. For example, Eswatini just released a tender for a 20 megawatt solar farm to be connected to their grid. It's due like October 1st or something. By the time that tender was released publicly, it goes through the Commerce Department, and then folks like Paul send it out to all of their contacts. Get on Paul's mailing list, tell him what your business is, what you produce, and where you want to sell it, and that's Commerce's job to help. They are also a part of Power Africa, so I'm really happy to push business Paul's way also. So definitely make sure he knows who you are and what business you want to do in Africa, especially under this new Prosper Africa initiative. I'm going to try to do my best to, as I see little glimpses, I mentioned that, to share them, sorry. I mentioned that the strength of Power Africa is our transaction advisors and staff all across sub-Saharan Africa. That's U.S. government staff, there's some commerce officers, there's State Department economic officers who cover all sorts of different sectors. There's USAID officers such as me. When I was in Mozambique for 5 years, I was covering agriculture, IT, mobile money, energy, water access, all sorts of different things. I met with lots of companies. And then we also have contractors under various Power Africa funded projects who are, they have transaction advisors based all across the continent. Those folks give little tidbits like, okay, we're expecting Angola to do a new metering program pretty soon. When we hear that, we try to note it down and then send it out in the Power Africa newsletter. So come and see me and just give me your email address. I'd be very happy to add you to our newsletter also. But that's really the name of the game, to compete, because we're not the only ones who want to do business there, and you have to get the information early enough to actually get your own act together to be able to put forth a competitive offer.
Yeah, Amanda, and I want to stress something out here. You know, when we talk about getting into the database of these agencies that you want to do business with, doing it early, you know, getting to the database for the newsletter for the City and County of Denver, the database for the Connect to Dot program. I mean, those are the type of things that you have to do as a business in order to be informed, because the sooner you know about opportunities, the better you can tackle them and the better you can prepare for them. So make sure that you go into some of these websites that we're mentioning and some of the websites into the programs that we have here at the table, and make sure you put in the name of your business, your email address, your contact information. Many times that's what it takes. We do have an MBO directory that we can also help government agencies find minority, women, and veteran-owned businesses. So make sure you do that. Let us know if you have any questions.
Rosie,
and one more question here.
One comment to finish up. So on services, we've been talking mostly about manufacturing and that, but when you go into the service, especially for Africa, you want to look into the African Development Bank. And I'm not sure if it's in the Ivory Coast or in Washington now, it moves back and forth, but we have a commerce person there that will help you to get onto that list for the services side, which is very important on that. And NRAIL usually works with countries and cities, individuals not so much, but they have over 120 some contracts, representations with countries around the world to develop and work with them on renewable energy.
Thank you, sorry.
Thank you very much for welcoming us here. I wanted to mention that my name is Foulot Bass from Paris, France, and I'm really glad and honored to be here with my friends, to come from France and to make a testimony here, which is, if there is somebody else in the world still thinking about what is America dream, then come here in Denver, you will see the proof. And that proof is in front of me. I am really honored to stand here before you and to speak to you from my heart for what I really believe in. Thank you, Aliou, for mentioning that we have a kind of obligation to think that Africa is an opportunity for the humanity, the whole humanity. And one of the opportunities are health and education. That's why I'm here. I just quit my position as a general manager of a university in France. 12,000 students, 4,000 degrees per year. I just earned 8 years as a general manager. For what? To go back to Africa, to take this big question, which is education, and health. But among this question of education, there is women issue. 4.5%, that is what Africa take young people to high education. Today, there is 8.5 young men and women in the universities. If Africa managed to come to the world average, we should have 128 million of students today. We only have 8. We only have 8. So there is somewhere what I call the industry of knowledge. It is opportunities. So America has the obligation to show how to go to mountaintop. This is what this man do every day. I want to beg your pardon for the quality of my English, but I wanted everybody here to hear from my heart what I think, what I believe as a responsibility from America, from Africa, and what I call the dinner table, what Africa has to come in to bring in this dinner table, and what is the responsibility for Denver, for Colorado. So we are creating university in Kigali and Saint-Louis, Senegal, Kigali, Rwanda, to really try to bring something and change somebody else's lives, to train women,
Yep.
That's why I
Thank you
wanted to
very,
have
very
that.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you so much. So I heard opportunity, I heard health, education, I heard equal opportunity for women into accessing education and obviously the workforce subsequently. So I think those are great points. And we need to further that conversation. We need to talk about other ways that we can help you do that locally. And so thank you very much. This has been like an eye-opener for me personally. You know, my daughter was in South Africa maybe a couple of months ago. I don't even think she touched 1% of what Africa could be. So I really, you know, I love the conversation. This has been a very, very different conversation from other events that we participate in. And my thought is we have a lot of opportunity here and we have a lot to do, a lot of work. So with that, I don't know if it's 11:20, it's a little bit past. So Julia, keep me. We have to say thank you to our panelists. Please help me thank them for their time, their knowledge, their passion. And we're not leaving, so come on over and ask us more questions. You know, let's start more conversations here. And thank you so very much, everybody, for being here today. We really appreciate you.
Yes, once again, please give a round of applause to all our panelists. And thank you so very much for a great panel session. And now we're going to present a modest gift to our panelists. Thank you. Thank you.
Shall we stay here, Rosie? Should we just sit here and wait, or shall we go?
One family picture there. So the photo. Do you happy? When do you want to share? What's that? We'll go to the side. Can we
And now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break for lunch, and we will be back at 12:20 for our keynote speaker. We would like to give special thanks to our sponsors, Bank of the West. Thank you very much for being here today. And also the Minority Business Office, thank you. Also special thanks for Serendipity Catering for providing lunch today. Please enjoy, thank you. And just as a reminder, we will be back at 12:20, at 12. And just to point out, our panelists, they're going to be around until the end of the conference, so please feel free to interact with them and ask any questions. Thank you. Be back at 12.